Ted Bundy, the charming psychopath who murdered at least 30 young women across 7 states in the 1970s, met his end in Florida's electric chair on January 24, 1989. And it wasn't pretty. Bundy spent his final hours desperately trying to delay the inevitable, confessing to murders he'd previously denied and offering information about unsolved cases. Too little, too late. The state of Florida wasn't buying his last-minute cooperation. At 7:06 a.m., guards walked him into the execution chamber and strapped him into Old Sparky, Florida's notorious electric chair. They shaved his head, placed a metal cap on top, attached electrodes to his right leg, and covered his face with a black hood so witnesses wouldn't have to see his face contort in agony. His last words were unremarkable. "Give my love to my family and friends." The first jolt hit him with 2,000 volts of pure electricity. His entire body went rigid, straining violently against the thick leather straps. Smoke started rising from his leg where the electrode burned through his skin. The smell of burning human flesh filled the execution chamber, making some witnesses gag. His fist clenched so hard, his skin turned completely white. After the first cycle, they checked for a heartbeat. Still going. So they hit him again. Another 2,000 volts surged through his body, cooking him from the inside out. His brain literally boiled inside his skull. The second jolt finally did the job, and Bundy was declared dead at 7:16 a.m. Outside the prison, crowds of hundreds gathered to celebrate. People cheered, set off fireworks, and held up signs. One read, "Tuesday is Friday." Another said, "Roast in hell, Ted." Bundy got exactly what he deserved. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal who murdered and dismembered 17 men and boys, didn't make it to old age in prison. On November 28, 1994, fellow inmate Christopher Scarver beat him to death in the prison gym bathroom. Dahmer was assigned to clean the bathrooms with Scarver and another inmate. Guards left them unsupervised, which turned out to be fatal. For Dahmer, anyway. Scarver grabbed a 20-inch metal bar from the weight room and cornered Dahmer in the bathroom. The first blow cracked Dahmer's skull open. Dahmer hit the floor, blood pouring from his head. But Scarver wasn't done. He kept swinging, smashing the metal bar into Dahmer's head repeatedly. Each strike caved in more of his skull, turning his head into a pulpy mess. Brain matter splattered across the bathroom tiles like paint. By the time the guards found them 20 minutes later, Dahmer was barely recognizable. His head was completely caved in, his face destroyed beyond recognition. He died on the way to the hospital from severe head trauma and massive brain damage. Scarver later said he was disgusted by Dahmer's crimes and decided to be the angel of death. He also killed another inmate that same day. When asked if he felt remorse, Scarver said, "I put his head down." Dahmer got off easy compared to what he did to his victims. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown who raped and murdered at least 33 teenage boys and young men in Chicago, burying most of them under his house, was executed by lethal injection on May 10, 1994. Except the execution went horribly wrong. Gacy spent his final hours eating a massive last meal, a bucket of KFC fried chicken, a dozen fried shrimp, French fries, fresh strawberries, and a Diet Coke. Because even serial killers watch their sugar intake. When offered a chance to speak words of remorse, he refused.
No.
He maintained his innocence until the end, claiming he was a victim of corrupt prosecutors. Sure, buddy. At 12:58 a.m., executioners strapped Gacy to the gurney and inserted the IV lines. The procedure was supposed to be quick. The first drug knocks you unconscious, the second drug paralyzes your muscles, the third drug stops your heart. Death within 5 to 7 minutes, they said. But something went catastrophically wrong. The drugs clogged in the IV tube, creating a complete blockage. Instead of flowing smoothly into his veins, the chemicals backed up and started solidifying. Gacy lay there, still fully conscious, fully aware that something wasn't working right. The execution had to be paused while technicians worked to fix the malfunction. For 18 agonizing minutes, Gacy lay strapped to that table, staring at the ceiling, knowing he was about to die, but unable to do anything. Just waiting, thinking about what was coming. Probably the longest 18 minutes of his pathetic life. They eventually got the IV working again and restarted the execution. The drugs finally flowed properly, knocking Gacy unconscious and stopping his heart. He was pronounced dead about 18 minutes later than scheduled. His last words? "Kiss my ass." Real classy. Outside Stateville Correctional Center, crowds celebrated with signs reading, "No tears for the clown." Gacy's death was messy and prolonged, but still nowhere near as brutal as what he did to those 33 boys. Eileen Wuornos, one of America's rare female serial killers who murdered 7 men in Florida, was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002. Unlike most death row inmates who fight their execution, Wuornos actually wanted to die. Wuornos spent 12 years on death row, and by the end, she'd completely lost it. She claimed prison guards were torturing her with sonic pressure and conspiracy theories. She fired her lawyers and stopped her appeals, basically begging the state to execute her. In her final interview, she showed zero remorse. "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again too." On execution day, she declined a final meal, just having coffee. Her last words were bizarre and rambling. "I just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back like Independence Day with Jesus, June 6th, like the movie, big mothership and all. I'll be back." What the heck does that even mean? Nobody knows. The woman was completely out of her mind. At 9:47 a.m., they administered the lethal injection. Unlike Gacy's botched execution, Wuornos's went smoothly. The drugs knocked her out within seconds, then stopped her heart. She was pronounced dead just minutes after the process started. Wuornos died angry, crazy, and completely unrepentant. She never showed remorse for killing those men, claiming they deserved it. She ended up exactly where she wanted to be. Dead. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer who murdered 10 people in Kansas between 1974 and 1991, is still alive. Yeah, this psychopath is still breathing, rotting away in maximum security. Rader got caught in 2005 because he was an absolute idiot. After going dormant for years, he started sending letters to the media again, taunting police. He asked if they could trace a floppy disk back to him. Police said no, they couldn't. So he sent them a floppy disk. They absolutely could trace it, and they did. Moron. He was arrested and sentenced to 10 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Kansas didn't have the death penalty during his active years, so execution was off the table. Lucky bastard. Rader is currently 79 years old, locked up in El Dorado Correctional Facility in Kansas. He spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement, with 1 hour for recreation. He's not allowed contact with other inmates because prison officials are scared someone will kill him. And honestly, someone probably would. So while other serial killers got the quick death of execution or the violent death of prison justice, BTK gets to sit in a cell, alone, for the rest of his miserable life. No death penalty, no dramatic ending, just decades of boredom and isolation until he eventually dies of old age. Some might say that's worse than death, rotting away in a concrete box, forgotten by the world, with nothing but your own sick thoughts to keep you company. BTK wanted fame and attention. Instead, he got a life sentence of absolute nothingness. Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker who terrorized California in the 1980s, killing at least 13 people in brutal home invasions, never made it to his execution. He died of natural causes on June 7, 2013, while still on death row. Ramirez was sentenced to death in 1989 after being convicted on 13 counts of murder, 5 counts of attempted murder, 11 counts of sexual assault, and 14 counts of burglary. But California's death penalty appeals process moves slower than a dead snail, so he spent 23 years on death row without ever getting close to execution. During those decades, his health completely fell apart. He developed serious complications from chronic hepatitis C, which he almost certainly contracted from years of heavy intravenous drug use. The disease slowly destroyed his liver. On top of that, he developed B-cell lymphoma, an aggressive blood cancer that spread through his system. In his final months, prison officials transferred Ramirez from San Quentin to Marin General Hospital for emergency medical treatment. But by that point, it was too late. The combination of complete liver failure and advanced cancer were killing him faster than the state ever could with lethal injection. On June 7, 2013, at age 53, Richard Ramirez died in his hospital bed, handcuffed to the rails with armed guards stationed outside watching. No dramatic execution, no prison violence, just a slow, miserable, painful death from disease. The irony is almost poetic. Ramirez killed people in the most brutal, terrifying ways imaginable. He'd break into their homes at night, terrorize them, torture them, leave satanic symbols at crime scenes. He showed no mercy. But in the end, he died pathetically in a hospital bed, his body completely wrecked by his own lifestyle choices. So there you have it. How some of history's most notorious serial killers met their end. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it's just watching someone waste away in a cell for decades. But one way or another, these monsters are either dead or dying. If you found this dive into dark history fascinating, make sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this. Check out this next video where we explore even more twisted stories from the past. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.